said. That interview was set to air on April 24th of this year, and it never did. We don't own that tape, so we can't show it to you. So instead, we invited Stephen's son back to explain what he saw and experienced that day. What he has to say is shocking. We recommend you watch. Mr. Sun, thank you very much for coming back. Thank you very much, today. So, I want to start with the days before January 6th, 2021. It was commonly known there was going to be a demonstration. I believe there was going to be a demonstration in front of the Capitol that day. You were the chief of Capitol Police. You're in charge of security at the Capitol. So it would seem logical that you would have the most intelligence, the most up-to-date, most accurate intelligence about what was likely to happen that day, because you're consulting with all kinds of other agencies, intel agencies, law enforcement agencies, lots of federal agencies. But it doesn't sound like you did have the most information about what was going to happen.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, what we've learned that it was out there at the time versus what we had coming into it, night and day. When you talk about the intelligence agency, I have one intelligence agency. I've had Capitol Police, IICD, Interagency Intelligence Coordination Division.
Yes.
That coordinates with the other intelligence agencies. And now, we're seeing the intelligence I was getting coming into it was indicating this was going to be just like the previous MAGA rallies, the November and December rallies that we had. We had limited skirmishes. We had some skirmishes afterwards down by BLM Plaza with some of the Antifa groups, some of the BLM groups. We're coming into it absolutely zero with the intelligence of no analysis. They're talking about attacking the Capitol, killing my police officers, attacking members of Congress and killing members of Congress. None of that was included in the intelligence coming up to
That you received.
Correct.
But others received that intelligence.
Well, we now know FBI, DHS was swimming in that intelligence. We also know now that the military seem to have some very concerning intelligence as well.
It's hard to overstate how strange that is, because you were in charge of the actual facility that was the focus of the protest.
Well, think about it. I'm the chief of police at the United States Capitol, probably one of the most prominent and should be the most secure building in the United States and the world. You'd like to think of that. But when you look at it, and don't take my word for it, look at, there's now at least four congressional reports talking about the intelligence failure, IG reports, GAO reports talking about various intelligence failures. But coming into it, think about it. FBI, the Washington Field Office didn't put out a single document, a single official document specific to January 6th. DHS didn't put out a single official document specific to January 6th. That's very unusual. I've been through many other events in Washington, D.C. The FBI would host a joint conference call at the least. It may be an executive JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force briefing, or, and for all these big events, the DHS and FBI would get together and put out something that's called a JIB, a Joint Intelligence Bulletin. It's zero for January 6th.
So you describe this as an intelligence failure, but a failure is something that happens accidentally, and I don't see how this could be accidental. So walk us through the contact that you had with DHS and FBI in the days before January 6th.
So my contacts with those agencies or the other law enforcement agencies would have always been through my IICD.
Yes.
They were the ones that was the conduit. We were a consumer of intelligence. We had turned to the intelligence community to get the latest intelligence. I know Metropolitan was hosting a conference call every couple of Mondays, and I was on a couple of those conference calls. None of the intelligence that was coming up talking about the storming of the Capitol, killing members of Congress, or killing my police officers was ever discussed in those the conference calls that I was on, at least. And think of this.
And so you never heard that?
Never heard it. And
but how could you not have? I don't work in a federal bureaucracy, but that doesn't seem to make sense at all.
It doesn't make sense. Think about this. On January 5th, the day before the attack, at 1 p.m., I think it was 1 or noon, I had a conference call with the leaders of all the law enforcement, Conti from Metropolitan Police Department, Steve D'Antuono, the director of the Washington Field Office for the FBI. Nobody from DHS was on. I hadn't thought about that, but all the law enforcement was down there. I had the military district of Washington, General Omar Jones, on the phone with me. I had the head of the National Guard, General William Walker, on the call. It was a call I coordinated. Not one person on the call talked about any concerns for the intelligence, the attack on the Capitol, the threats to officers that we were seeing that was out there. That's what's scary.
And to be clear, do we now know for a fact that the people on that call knew about those threats? Johnson didn't mention them to you?
So this is what we know for a fact, and I'll tell you, I'm not the only chief that was in the dark. You look at Robert County, head of the largest police department in Washington, D.C. He also said the same thing. He wasn't getting the same notifications like the Norfolk memo that came out the day before. He didn't get it. So Steve D'Antuono, who's the Washington Field Office FBI director, look at the GAO report that came out in February of this year. It talks about multiple emails. It's the GAO report, it's a Senate report that just came out in July, just last month. It talks about multiple emails going to Steve D'Antuono on Sunday, Monday, and some probably Tuesday, just the days before, talking about the violence that they're predicting coming up to the Capitol. And I have a video call with him on that Tuesday, and nothing said about it. I mean, that's not a word. Not a word.
So, not to repeat myself, but that does not make sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Especially when you think about this, the military, the United States military. And this gets really convoluted once you get into the response on January 6th and how it was delayed getting resources. You have the United States military, the Secretary of Defense, or Acting Secretary of Defense Miller, and Acting General Milley had both discussed locking down the city of Washington, D.C. because they were so worried about the violence at the Capitol on January 6th. On Sunday and Monday, they had been discussing locking down the city, revoking permits on Capitol Hill because of the concern for violence. You know who issues the permits on Capitol Hill for demonstrations? I do. You know who wasn't told? Me. Instead, on January 4th, what does Miller do? He puts out a memo restricting the National Guard from carrying various weapons, any civil disobedience equipment that would be utilized for the very demonstrations or violence that he sees coming. It just doesn't make any sense.
Wait. So the military says we're so concerned about potential imminent violence that we are considering shutting down the city. But at the very same time, they decide that the National Guard can't adopt an aggressive posture.
Right. They're deployed because they're going to be deploying National Guard to assist Washington, D.C. with crowd control on metros and some more traffic control areas. But they put this out on January 4th, specific to January 5th and 6th. And this direction affected the National Guard in Virginia and Maryland. When I was calling begging for assistance on January 6th, they weren't allowed to respond at first. Look at Governor Hogan. He did a press conference saying he was begging to respond, and he was being denied by the Pentagon. All because of the money.
So, why?
You know, you begin to wonder why, and especially when you look at things like something that I recently came across when you talk about the military. General Milley, now finding out, and it's not from me, this is from Carolina, investigative reporter from the Washington Post, has found that he was using data miner on his own, coming across intelligence.
Tell us what data miner is.
So data miner is an intelligence platform. It's not something your average citizen would have on their computer. I guess it goes in and does crawling across webs. I'm not really sure how it works.
Yes.
But it's an intelligence platform. He's picking up intelligence talking about killing members of Congress and attacking the United States Capitol. And he's not telling me. He's telling select members of Congress. I mean, Carolina writes about it in her book. That's concerning as hell. Because as the chief of police, there's a duty to warn them. And I should be told so I can take the necessary action. I don't know who else is telling me. Sure wasn't telling me.
Again, what could possibly be the explanation for that?
I'm not really sure.
You've done this for over 30 years. You're very familiar. You've been in law enforcement in D.C. specifically for over 30 years. So you know how the city runs. You know the federal agencies respond to protests. This is not the first violent protest.
Not at all.
There have been many.
I've done many national special security events, and this was handled differently. The intelligence, no JIP, no coordination, no discussion in advance. It's almost like they wanted it to be watered down, the intelligence to be watered down for some reason. I talked about a little bit in the book that maybe they were concerned for the Trump invoking the Insurrection Act, and they were worried about that. But I've had people, there's other, thoughts out there. But luckily we still have people investigating this. I still think there's puzzle pieces missing. Someone's going to find out what's really behind all this, because it wasn't right the way the intelligence was handled and the way we were set up on the Hill.
Big picture, just to restate, you've seen many things like this, and as you just said, this was very different. This was handled very differently. By whom?
By the intelligence. I'd say one by the intelligence agency, two by the military. So the reason why I say the military, think of this. By federal law, Congress passed a law that requires me to go to the Sergeant Arms Capitol Police Board in advance of an event and to request federal resources such as the National Guard. So Congress passed a law. It's 2 U.S. Code 1970. Look it up. Just make sure you look it up before December 22 when they changed it. So it was in effect on the 6th. That requires me to go and get approval for bringing in National Guard or federal assistance in advance. I have to go to the Capitol Police Board and get approval from congressional leadership in advance, like I did on January 3rd. I'm denied twice because of optics, and because the intelligence didn't support us. Think about that.
Let me ask you, who made that decision? Who denied you?
I was denied by Paul Rubin, House Sergeant Arms, and also Mike Stinger, Senate Sergeant Arms.
And who
On January 3rd.
Who do they work for?
It would have been for Pelosi on the House side. That Pelosi was number one boss, and then McConnell on the Senate side.
So effectively, Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi shut down your request.
My request was shut down, one, because of optics, which is interesting. You're going to hear that term come up a couple more times, optics, or the look of the National Guard on the Hill. But yeah, and the Capitol Police Board, I mean, it's unbelievable that I'm the only chief of police in the United States that has a law preventing me, not just regulations, rules that say I got to go and get approval to bring in the National Guard, a law. So that's crazy that Congress is going to pass a law that controls what I can do to protect the Capitol, and even in emergencies. So think of this, even while we're under attack, I have to go to those same two people to request the National Guard to be brought in. I have 340 National Guard that have been activated. At least 150 to 180 of those are in the city, many of them within eyesight of the Capitol, okay? We get to come under attack at 12:53, 12:55. I called the Washington, D.C. Police Department and talked to their Assistant Chief Jeff Carroll. Thank God I had talked to him at 10:59 in the morning and asked him if he could possibly put some additional resource on Constitution Avenue, and he had some CDU platoons up there. Called him and said, hey, please send those in right away, because we knew as soon as they came to the list when they started attacking, it was going to be bad. 12:58, I make my first call to the Sergeant Arms, asking, saying, hey, it's bad, we need assistance, I need a declaration of emergency, I need to bring in the military immediately and federal resources. I'm told by Paul, I'm going to run up the chain, I'll get back to you.
And the chain is Pelosi.
The chain is chain with Nancy Pelosi. He didn't have to do that, but he wouldn't give me authorization. The law says in emergency you can grant me authorization, but he didn't. He said he'd run up the chain. My next call was over to Mike Stinger. He's now the chairman of the Capitol Police Board. Told him the same thing. We're getting our asses handed to us on the left front. I need federal resources. He said, what did Paul tell you? He said he's running up the chain. Let's wait to hear what we hear from Paul. Sorry. So for the next 71 minutes, I make 32 calls. I'm in the command center. I'm calling my partner agencies, and by law, one of the first people to offer assistance was the United States Secret Service. And by law, I should have requested their assistance. I shouldn't have until I had approval. But I'm looking at my men and women having their asses handed to them. And my first thought was, fuck it, I will take whatever discipline there is. Send me whatever you got. No, that's the one text Secret Service turned over. How they lost all their texts?
Yes.
It's the text between their Chief Sullivan and myself. Thank God for him.
I don't. So please. So you make this call immediately to the House Sergeant Arms, who reports Mr. Irving, who reports Nancy Pelosi. Says I'll call Pelosi.
He says I'm running up the chain.
Run up the chain, but that is the chain.
Now,
Here's the
I
next thing.
got you. So I want to tell you exactly.
So what happens then? Does he get back to you?
So for the next 71 minutes, make the 32 calls to a number of agencies. 11 of those calls are follow-up calls. And look at the Senate combined report from 2001. They have a great infographic with the call after call after call after call, 11 times.